Well, I wanted to just take a few seconds, a few minutes to outline where we're going in the spring. We did, as you know, introduce a throne speech in the fall. It was a really big, substantive one. So we're continuing on that agenda, and that hasn't changed. We are not going to be pursuing flights of fancy and changing the agenda every 6 months or so. It's a jobs agenda. It's about putting people to work, and we're going to continue with that agenda. But I did want to say a few things about where we're going, just to kind of to refresh it. And I've been Premier now for about 11 months, and we've been making a lot of changes in government since I arrived. And I think for me, the most important thing we've done is open up government. So that means doing things like coming on your show for an hour and a half. It means traveling around doing town halls in places like Cranbrook, Fort St. John, Comox, Chinese community fully translated in Richmond, and doing roundtables. So, for example, I was in the Okanagan and I did a roundtable on public safety, local issues in Maple Ridge. I've been talking to students and faculty at Trinity Western University, TRU, UBC, and I think perhaps the most inspiring visit that I made was to Burns Lake, where there's a community that is coping with grave emotional losses, potentially big economic change, and you know, really being resilient in the face of personal tragedy. So everywhere I've gone, though, I've listened and I've learned a lot about British Columbians and the challenges that they see we face. And I think, you know, one of the things that's become painfully obvious, and I'm sure you hear it every day on your show, is that people understand the economic turmoil in which we live in British Columbia, or in the world these days. It's been tough out there, and you go down to the United States, as I was twice in the last week. It's a real mess down there. They are dealing with huge issues. You go to Europe, again, they're coping with really difficult issues. And other provinces across the country are facing big deficits and high unemployment. We are fighting for the economic future of British Columbia and trying to make sure that families can look forward to a stable future, making sure that they can look forward to a good livelihood to put food on the table for their kids. I want to keep BC a safe harbor in the midst of the economic turmoil that the world is experiencing, and we can do that by managing our finances responsibly, controlling spending, which is crucially important, keeping our taxes low, and attracting investment jobs. Investment in jobs. We also have to make sure that we are avoiding chronic deficits, which is something that we've been seeing unfold all across Canada. But that means that you can't make promises that you can't pay for. And it also means you have to say no sometimes, which is a very difficult thing. And balancing the budget is going to be a difficult thing. But we are determined, and I am determined, with Kevin Falcon, to make sure that we chart a balanced course for economic stability in the province. And because that is the only way that we are going to create and protect jobs. We cannot afford to go back to the 1990s. We cannot afford to go back to the reckless and risky policies that shoveled your money, taxpayers' money, off the back of a truck. So we sent in review teams over the last year into BC Hydro, into Community Living BC, and into the Justice Ministry. And those reviews have already led to lower costs for BC Hydro. It will lead to better service for clients and families of CLBC, and it will mean that we are going to have an open and honest look at our justice system. There is only one taxpayer bill, and we are going to create an Auditor General for local government to make sure that local governments are keeping property taxes under control. So this is what we're talking about when I talk about stable fiscal management, and that's what I mean when I say we're delivering on the jobs plan that we set out in September and that we talked about in the legislature in the last session. It's about getting government out of the way of job creation, creating infrastructure to get our goods to market, and making sure that we're opening those new markets. And I'd like to encourage any of your listeners who want to check it out on the web, because the BC Jobs Plan is there. We're continuing to add to it, and we're seeking people's input on it. And so it's bcjobsplan.ca if people want to go check it out. And we are making progress on it already. And I think you saw the natural gas strategy that we unveiled a few weeks ago. That is a really solid example of where we're going on the jobs plan. We want to take BC's natural gas, which is abundant in the northeast, compress it into liquefied natural gas in the northwest, and ship it to Asia, where we can get a much higher price and diversify our market so that we're no longer captive to the North American price for natural gas. And it's going to create up to 11,000 new jobs over the next 8 years. And it's an opportunity to grow a brand new industry for Canada, and not just British Columbia, but for Canada. So we're going to have to make sure, though, that we are continuing to look across the spectrum and make sure that we're looking after skills training and making sure that we're making sure that people have the education that they need to be able to get those jobs. Now, shipbuilding is another example of something that we've done over the last 11 months to make it, that I think made a difference. We implemented a skills training credit that helped us land the biggest federal procurement in British Columbia's history. That's about 4,000 jobs. Rio Tinto Alcan is making the biggest private sector investment ever made in BC up in Kitimat. Mining expansions are being announced, including at the Huckleberry Mine. That's going to create 70 new jobs and ensure the stability of 230 over the long term. Western Forest Products is investing $200 million to modernize their Vancouver Island operations. And after years and years of squabbling and acrimony, we broke the logjam on the Evergreen Line, creating 8,000 jobs and connecting the Tri-Cities, including Port Moody and Coquitlam, back into the system, into the rapid transit system. This spring, we are going to introduce and work on job creation plans in tourism, transportation, technology and clean tech, mining, agriculture and foods, forestry, and international education. And that's going to make sure that we are building the economy that we need to support those services that people depend on, healthcare, education. The money for those services comes from somewhere, and where it comes from is from a thriving private sector economy. We are going to invest $165 million in BC schools to hire more teaching assistants so that kids get more attention in the classroom. We will reduce court backlogs. We are putting the interests of children first in divorce proceedings and moving more families from costly legal fights to mediation. We will protect our tough drunk driving laws, balancing strict penalties with due process. We will introduce comprehensive anti-bullying strategies for our schools. We will implement a seniors agenda that will improve support and services for the fastest growing part of our population. And we'll continue to help get families ahead by connecting people to jobs and the skills that they need to be able to get those jobs. So finally, Bill, I know this is longer than my standard editorial used to be. A few words, if I can, about our work to get new labor agreements with the unions that represent government workers. We are not able to provide pay increases unless we can find savings within government to pay for them. I am just not interested in raising taxes to pay for public sector wage increases. On education, our priority is to focus the resources that we have on students in classrooms, not on the 15% wage hike the teachers' union is asking for. We've already appointed a fact finder to report back on this dispute, but I am not terribly optimistic. There have been 73 negotiating sessions with the teachers' union since their contract expired, and there's been almost no movement at the bargaining table. And later this spring, other collective agreements also expire. We are committed to find ways of getting agreements, but we are not going to ask taxpayers to pay more to fund them. Our economy is very fragile at the moment, and once we make the economy stronger, we will have more choices because we'll be able to afford more. And that's why we're fighting for the economic future of BC families. That's why we have a jobs plan. That's why we are working to protect and create jobs in British Columbia. Thank you, Bill, for the time.
Much more with Premier Christy Clark right after this. And a reminder that you can watch the Premier live on cknw.com. We're live streaming this interview. Email us your questions, good@cknw.com, or tweet us at cknw or at BillGood980. Back right after this.
Now, CKNW all-day traffic and weather.
Starting off on the Alex Fraser Bridge, a stalled truck northbound before Midsbend in the right lane. Taking a look at your weather for today, cloudy, 60% chance of showers early this morning. Clearing up in the morning with a high of 8. Tonight, a few clouds, increasing cloudiness before morning with a low +2. And Tuesday, mainly cloudy, 60% chance of showers in the morning with a high of 7. It's year-end clearance at Don Doc Stetters Volvo. Huge savings and low financing on remaining 2011 Volvos. Limited supply, so hurry to Don Doc Stetter Volvo, Canby and Marine, Vancouver. I'm Susie Patrick with your all-day traffic on CKNW News Talk 980.
CKNW Traffic.
For Citruso Carpet Cleaning. For a limited time, have 2 rooms cleaned and get the next 2 at half price. Get details and book online now at citruso.com.
The President and CEO of Hockey Canada, Bob Nicholson.
There shouldn't be fighting in the game of hockey. I want to have a very physical style of hockey and we should have zero tolerance to hits to the head.
I've gone full circle a billion times on this. Today, I no longer see where fighting belongs in the game. I no longer see how they want to outlaw headshots and yet say it's okay to pound each other.
Dan Russell's Sports Talk, weeknights at 9 on CKNW News Talk 980.
What good's a new premier if it turns out to be politics as usual again? It will be if special interest money continues to have its unrelenting and distorting influence on our politics and politicians. Integrity BC is a nonpartisan, nonprofit group fighting for accountability in BC politics. They're advocating for legislative reform, tougher electoral finance laws, an independent BC ethics commissioner, and more. Visit integritybc.ca and show your support. Together, we can clean up BC politics for good.
Making sure your roof is done right the first time. This roofing awareness tip is brought to you by Interprovincial Roof Consultants.
Insist on hiring RCABC member contractors. The RCABC scrutinizes their members regularly and provides training towards journeyman certification. Qualified tradesmen install quality roofs the first time.
For professional advice with your roofing project, contact the professionals. Contact Interprovincial Roof Consultants. For more information, tips, and a no-charge quote, visit iprc.ca.
The dreaded F word, filing. But any good business has theirs in order. Why? Time is money. This is where Microcom comes in. Instead of your employees wasting time with paper files, Microcom takes those files and makes them digital. Now, whether you need a file from 6 years or 6 days ago, it's just a click away, not buried deep in a pile of boxes. The F word suddenly isn't so bad. For a digital file solution for your business, visit microcomsys.com.
Oh, great. There goes $200 for my windshield deductible.
Don't you have your vehicle replacement coverage with Ultima Risk Solutions?
Should I?
Absolutely. Ultima not only replaces your vehicle if you have a total loss, they reimburse your deductibles up to $500 for total losses and $250 for partial losses up to 5 years.
Really?
And there's no limit on the amount of claims. They even cover windshield deductibles.
To find out more, visit getyourdeductibleback.com. Certain restrictions apply.
Restore, renew, and refresh your home at the BC Home and Garden Show presented by LG Appliances. 5 days only, February 22nd to the 26th at BC Place Stadium. Experience revolutionary home building and decor ideas in the Kitsilano Dream Home by Carolina. And don't miss appearances by HGTV expert Brian Baumler. Plus, shop for great deals on the latest new products from over 400 home and garden experts. The BC Home and Garden Show, February 22nd to the 26th. Buy tickets online and save $3 courtesy of HomeStars at VancouverHomeshow.com.
You're listening to CKNW News Talk 980, BC's news leader.
BC Premier Christy Clark live in studio. I've got lots of questions. Let me start by reminding you that 8 months ago you sat here and promised fast action to deal with Stanley Cup rioters, and you said I could hold you accountable.
We are going to prosecute those people to the full extent of the law.
I'm going to hold you accountable on that because my fear is that they'll get a slap on the wrist, that the police will be able to identify them because there are a lot of pictures, but that not much will happen.
You, Bill, you can hold me accountable on that. We are going to make sure that we bring in that those folks who are responsible for this, once we can identify them, once we can sift through the mountain of evidence that's there, and we can find them, we are going to prosecute them to the full extent of the law, and they should know this. If they are listening today, they should know this, that as much as we are able, we are going to publicize who they are. Their family, their friends, their employers are going to know what role they played in this. They will not be able to hide.
You also said you wanted broadcast coverage. So far, no trials, and it appears there won't be broadcast coverage, although we won't know that finally until later today.
Yeah, we'll know that at 2 o'clock today. Now, what we have applied to do is we've applied to have the sentencing and the reasons for sentencing televised, right? Not the entire trial. It's been sentencing, a reason for sentencing, and the judge is going to rule on that today. And my view is whatever happens with that. My view has always been that we need more openness in our courtrooms. People need to understand how justice works, I think, and the best way to do that is to allow us to see how justice works. And, not everybody's a reporter who gets permission as part of their job to go down and visit the courthouse when a case is going on. So my view is we need to find more ways to open up the courtrooms. This is one piece of a much bigger puzzle. where a much bigger package of reforms that I think over time we need to bring in to open up courtrooms. It's not going to happen fast, but can I say something on the Stanley Cup rioters? You said you were worried that they were going to get a slap on the wrist. I said we are going to prosecute them to the fullest extent that we can. We are doing that. And it's taken way longer than any of us wanted. I mean, it took way longer than any of us had hoped for the police to find all the evidence that they needed. But, you know, we wanted to make sure that they built the best possible cases that they could. And it's taken way longer for these things to find their way to court than any of us had hoped as well. But, Bill, they are going to start going to court. And what the commitment that I made then, and I'm sticking with this, is we are going to prosecute them to the full extent that we can. That's what I said, and that hasn't changed.
The justice system seems in crisis. Until last week, the system was short 22 judges. You've announced just 9 new appointments. That's 13 short, and people are being freed from serious charges because there aren't enough judges. More than 100 cases have been thrown out because they couldn't get into court in timely fashion.
Well, you know, Bill, I think that there are other things happening in the court system that have nothing to do with the amount of resources or the number of judges. But the problem is we need to identify what those are. We have added more money to the court system, including, as you say, 9 judges, 20 new judges since 2010. So there have been a whole number of new judges that have come in. New money has gone in. The number of cases going to court has dropped. So has the crime rate. So fewer cases going in, more money going in, but delays are getting longer.
So why do you think that is?
It just doesn't add up. I don't know the answer to that, but we're going to get to the bottom of it. And that's why I appointed Jeff Cowper, who's one of Canada's leading lawyers, to head up a commission of, to look into this, to inquire into what's going on there, because it doesn't make any sense that we should be, because, if we're adding more money and the delays are getting longer, despite the fact that fewer cases are going into court, then clearly it's not just a question of, gee, if you add more money, it's going to make it better, because adding more money hasn't made it better so far.
But you're not adding enough judges.
Well, but, you'd think that with the number of cases going to court dropping, less caseload, that what's happened, Bill, is that the number of cases have dropped. The crime rate has dropped. We have added judges. You would think that all those three, that confluence of 3 events, would mean that the delays are actually getting shorter.
Well, I'm told
but they're not. They're getting longer.
One of the reasons is the courts are being clogged by drinking and driving charges, which are taking much longer to process today than they did a couple of years ago.
I don't know that that's necessarily the case, Bill. The thing is that the average length of case has not gone up. So add that to this weird scenario.
What are you saying, the system is inefficient, that judges aren't sitting long enough or working long enough, or that the courts aren't open long enough?
We are going to have a good deep look into it. I think, it's not just what's going on in the courts, and this is because there are other aspects of the justice system that really have an impact. So, for example, after someone finishes their sentence, if they go to jail, they go out to the community. Well, those first 60 days of placement in the community are absolutely crucial in determining whether or not that person is likely to commit another crime. Do they go to a stable home, to potentially to a stable job? Are they in a community where they have family and support, to be there for them? So those 60 days really matter. Well, if we're going to add resources to the justice system, maybe we should be adding them there, because if we can cut down the rate of recidivism, we cut down the number of cases that are actually going to court and the amount of crime that's being done. But the debate that we've had so far has just been about, let's add more money to what goes on in the 4 walls of the courtroom. Well, I think that we need to think a lot more broadly than that about our justice system. If new resources are required, they may be required outside the justice system, and that may be why, when we've added more money to the system and more judges to the system inside the 4 walls of the court, it hasn't made a substantive difference in terms of the delays.
Speaking of resources, you ordered a review of BC Hydro when you felt the company was getting bloated, too many high-priced employees, not in the field, but in head office. Are you satisfied that BC Hydro has been reined in?
Well, I mean, it's an ongoing process. I'm satisfied that the management at BC Hydro has a real commitment to making sure this happens.
And yet last week, they were about to hire 21 more communications people.
No, they weren't about to hire them. What they were about to do is they were about to pre-qualify them to get them on a list where if they decided they needed them, they could. These people would be allowed to tender for a contract. It's something that all government agencies do so that we can make sure that tendering is done fairly. They weren't about to hire them. But when I became Premier, BC Hydro had, was proposing rate increases of 50%. And I said, forget it. That's way too high. But we had to figure out how we could try and ratchet down that cost. So that was why we went in the first of the series of these reviews to get to the bottom of what was going on there and to try and figure out what the causes of that increase were. And we discovered that BC Hydro could afford to shed about 1,000 employees because, that was part of what was driving the rate increases. Another one was the government's policy, my predecessor's policy, to measure their needs based on the worst possible drought year, which again was having an impact on rates. So we're addressing those issues. And because, I get it. People are struggling to get ahead in a really tough economy. And people can't afford 50% rate increases in BC Hydro.
Much more with Christy Clark, the Premier of BC, right after the news to the top of the hour. You are listening to an expanded Chorus Radio Network production this morning with Bill Good.
Hi, it's John McComb. You've heard me raving about a wonderful retirement community in Vancouver called Tapestry at Westbrook Village, UBC, with first-class amenities like the gourmet fine dining restaurant, the Prime Fit fitness gym, the wellness center, and the high-definition virtual golf simulation. I've told you how that you are kept in charge of the lifestyle you want to live, everything from complete independence to a discreet assisted living plan designed just for your needs. Still undecided? Well, how about this? You can move into Tapestry on a trial basis to see if it's right for you. Make your own decision based on your own first-hand experience. All you need to bring are your clothes and personal care items. Tapestry supplies the rest, including meals and access to all amenities and services. I can tell you that some people come for a trial stay and they're so impressed they never leave. Oh, and there's a move-in coordinator who would be happy to assist you if you decide to stay. Make a resolution for 2012 to experience the art of seniors living at Tapestry Westbrook Village, UBC. Call for a tour, 604-225-5000, or visit discovertapestry.com.
My mom moved into the care home a year ago. She lived with us as long as she could until the care she needed was more than we could give. I marvel when I watch these healthcare workers looking after Mom. They feed her, bathe her, entertain her. They get her moving and make her smile. If they weren't doing the jobs they do, we'd be lost. They give my mother a quality of life I thought was gone forever.
We're members of the Hospital Employees Union. In a system stretched to the limit, we're working as a team to protect the care.
Remember back when your teeth always seemed to sparkle and you didn't need to try to hide gaps when you smiled? Tom Larscheid inviting you to find out what your smile could be with a visit to my dentist, Dr. Wilson Kwong. With long-lasting dental implants, the look, feel, and function are natural, and you can eat your favorite foods again and smile with confidence and ease. I feel so much better since getting dental implants done by Dr. Wilson Kwong, and I recommend him to everyone I know. Visit SmilesAreBeautiful.com. That's SmilesAreBeautiful.com.
It's 9 o'clock. Live from BC's news leader. This is the Bill Good Show on CKNW News Talk 980.
It is 7 degrees and clearing. More live with Premier Christy Clark just ahead, but first to the NW News Desk and Tom Mark.
The news for Dr. Wilson Kwong's dental team. It's all about jobs and fiscal responsibility. Premier Christy Clark plans a busy agenda for the spring session of the legislature.
This spring, we are going to introduce and work on job creation plans in tourism, transportation, technology and clean tech, mining, agriculture and foods, forestry, and international education. And that's going to make sure that we are building the economy that we need to support those services that people depend on, healthcare, education. The money for those services comes from somewhere. And where it comes from is from a thriving private sector economy.
Speaking with CKNW's Bill Good, the Premier says she's determined to chart a balanced course for economic stability in the province. You'll hear more right after this newscast. And the Vancouver Park Board may file a lawsuit against a Fraser Valley farmer after he allegedly sold adopted Stanley Park animals for slaughter. Chair Constance Barnes says the city's legal department will determine if the farmer breached an adoption agreement that would allow the animals to live out their natural lives.
This is what we, wanted to make sure never happened. It has, so now it's a matter of making sure that this person is held accountable.
The hobby farmer allegedly sold a number of his goats and sheep for their meat at a local auction yard. The city may demand the return of the remaining animals. The SPCA will be inspecting other properties where other farm animals were adopted. Marcy Moriarty says that process begins this week.
The city has contracted us as part of their due diligence to inspect at other properties where the animals were adopted, and we will be undertaking that process this week.
Moriarty says the SPCA has inspected the Langley Hobby Farm where the goats lived, and there were no concerns raised in terms of cruelty to animals. CKNW News Time is 9:02. A spokesman for the Port Mann Highway 1 project says an assessment of the gantry crane that malfunctioned on Friday has shown that damage is limited to the base of the crane. Director of Communications for the project, Max Logan.
There doesn't appear to be any damage to the bridge deck or to the yellow gantry.
A 90-ton piece of concrete was sent falling into the Fraser River when the gantry tilted on Friday morning. Logan says it's too early to say whether the incident will delay the overall schedule of the project, saying that will depend on the outcome of an investigation and on the repair work that needs to be done. 2 men are dead after a fire on a home near Clinton on Sunday. RCMP say they responded to a fire caused by an explosion in a rural area near the community. They found 2 men dead inside the home as well as a dog, which failed to survive. The cause of the explosion is unknown at this point, but the coroner and fire commissioner are investigating. Adele is queen of the music industry with a 6th Grammy night. CNN's Jim Roop reports the British singer who had throat surgery in November goes 6 for 6.
Adele could barely compose herself as she accepted her 6th Grammy Award. She also won Song of the Year, Record of the Year, Best Solo Pop Performance of the Year, Best Pop Vocal Album, Best Short-Form Music Video. The Foo Fighters took 5 trophies. The performances were fantastic, from Bruce Springsteen's Open to Paul McCartney's Close, including the tribute to Whitney Houston, Houston's hit I Will Always Love You, sung by Jennifer Hudson. Backstage at the Grammys, Jim Roop, CNN, Los Angeles.
The coroner says it will take toxicology tests to figure out what killed Whitney Houston. Reporter Alex Stone has more.
There are now reports several powerful medications used to battle anxiety and sleeplessness were found in Houston's hotel room at the Beverly Hilton, including Xanax, Valium, and lorazepam. The question now is, did she take so many or combine drugs to where she drowned in the bathtub at the Beverly Hilton? That's one scenario police and the coroner are now looking at.
An autopsy was performed yesterday, but the toxicology results could take weeks. CKNW News for Dr. Wilson Kwong's dental team. Visit SmilesAreBeautiful.com. CKNW News Time is 9:04. With all-day traffic, here's Susie Patrick.
If you're heading into Richmond, we're dealing with an accident westbound on the east-west connector just before the Westminster Highway overpass. In Surrey, a stall westbound on Highway 1 just west of 160th, and an accident southbound on 152nd Street at 91st Avenue. It's not too late to catch up. Maximize your RRSP's contribution this year with CIBC RRSP Express Loan. Speak to a CIBC advisor before February 29th. I'm Susie Patrick with your all-day traffic on CKNW News Talk at 980. For instant traffic updates, go to AM 730, all traffic, all the time.
Now the CKNW Business News. In New York, the Dow Jones is up 81 points. In Toronto, the TSX Composite Index is up 6. The Canadian dollar is trading at 100.08 cents U.S., up a bit more than 1/3 cent. Mark Madriga's weather is next.
The dreaded S word, space. But any good business knows how to maximize theirs. Why? Because when you're paying hundreds per square foot, every inch counts. This is where Microcom comes in. Those filing cabinets, those boxes filling up valuable space. Microcom takes them all and makes them digital. Your files are safe, secure, backed up, and easily accessible. You'll be like, holy S word. For a digital file solution for your business, visit microcomsys.com.
And now with this forecast, here is Mark Madriga.
High pressure building from the northwest. Good news for us. A mix of sun and cloud, best way to describe this afternoon. Already a bit of clearing this morning. High temperature in Vancouver near 8. Tomorrow, a little more cloud coming back. Slight chance of showers and a high of 7. Mostly sunny again for Wednesday.
Right now, it's 5 in the valley, -1 in Whistler. Outside Pacific Center, it's 7 degrees. This is BC's news leader, CKNW News Talk 980. CKNW News Time is 9:06. I'm Tom Mark.
I'm Bill Good, live on the Chorus Radio Network, an extended version of the program this morning with BC Premier Christy Clark. You and your party have been falling steadily in the polls. Until recently, at least, you still led Mr. Dix, but no more.
Adrian Dix,
What's he hiding now? In the 90s, he was a top advisor to the government. When BC's debt doubled, taxes went up $2 billion over 2 years, and an average family paid 60% more income tax. Today, hiding behind a political makeover, but promising billions more spending, refusing to say how he'll pay for it. Isn't it time for answers? Learn more at can'tafforddicks.ca.
Will you concede the risky Dix attack ads failed?
Well, if you're basing your view of that on the polls, there have been other polls more recently that have suggested I'm still way ahead of Adrian Dix. So I think that was an Ipsos poll maybe. It's the thing is, Bill, you cannot judge these things based on the polls that go up and down over the course of when you're a year and a half out from an election. You just can't. And so it's somebody compared it this way to me the other day. They said, you remember Sam Gagner got, I think got like 8 goals in
8 points.
8 points in the game the other night. And it was unbelievable, right? Well, that's going to help them get toward the playoffs. But if he'd done that in an exhibition game, it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have made any difference. And I think it's kind of the same thing. We're looking at the polls, and some of them are very encouraging. Some of them are not very encouraging. But we're a year and a half out from an election.
We haven't had an encouraging poll for quite some time.
Well, I mean, most of the polls have been encouraging about my personal popularity, not so much about the parties. That's true. But, look, I'm not banking on. Well, think about it, right? What happens when? And I'm sure some of your listeners have had this experience. You get a phone call at 6 o'clock at night. Oh, hi, Miss Clark. We're phoning to find out who you're going to vote for. Well, I've got Hamish sitting there. He's hungry. I'm trying to cook dinner. The TV's on. I don't know. Is there an election on right now? And I just don't know if you can give a whole lot of weight to the polls.
Well, you liked the polls when you were running for the leadership, and they showed you most likely to be able to lead the party to a win in the next election.
Yeah, well, and I think that that's still true. But we were in a short 3-month race there, and as we got closer, it mattered more. We're not close to an election, Bill. We're a year and a half out.
But what about John Cummins and the Conservative Party? I saw a poll that showed 27% of people who voted Liberal last election now plan to vote Conservative. That spells big trouble for you.
Whose poll was that?
Well, I don't have it with me, but I did see it last week.
Well, this is the thing, right? You can't. There are a lot of polls out there. Some of them come from different sources. And
the Conservatives are trouble for you.
Well, I think the trouble for British Columbia is Adrian Dix. I'm focused on trying to create and protect jobs in the province. That is my singular focus, and it has been since the day I became premier. How do you put families first? You make sure that there's a job for them to go to so they can put food on the table for their kids. That's how you do it. And so rather than sitting around thinking about the polls and thinking about, what does this pundit say or that pundit say, I'm thinking about how we can put people to work, how we can navigate British Columbia through what's a very fragile economy. That's what British Columbians are counting on me to do, because I'm the premier, and I'm the only premier who, therefore the only person that's really can take responsibility for making this happen.
You talk about supporting families all the time, yet families relying on community living felt very let down by that organization.
Yeah, and you know what? I felt very let down, too, for them. I think, as I said in some year-end interviews last year, that it was the toughest thing that I had to deal with since I became premier. That was a problem that had been a long time in the making.
But your government was responsible for community living, and your appointment, Harry Bloy, was responsible.
Well, as I said, it was a problem that was a long time in the making, Bill. And we went in and we did a review, and what they said was the organization had lost its focus, which had to be the client. So, there were 2 ways of dealing with that. One of them was because in every day in question period, Adrian Dix would get up and say, "Spend more money, spend up to $100 million more money, and you'll fix this problem." And my response to that was the hard response, which is the harder response to deliver, which is, you know what? I think the problems are actually deeper than just money. So we need to go in and understand fundamentally what's not working at CLBC and fix it. If it requires more resources, we will add those resources. So what we did, rather than kind of doing it the NDP way, which is chuck more money at it and then ask questions later, we asked the questions, and then we figured out from that point how much money it was going to need to fix it. And that's what we did. We came up with $40 million in a really tight budget. addressing what we think are the underlying problems at CLBC, so that this doesn't just keep happening. Because you can just keep throwing money at stuff if you don't fix the problems.
You did internal reviews. They were released, and the new minister, could not tell us how many developmentally disabled BCers were on the waiting list. I mean, how is it possible that you do an internal review and you don't know how many clients are waiting for your help?
Exactly. So first of all, we released all the documents, which is part of open government. We released the BC Hydro Review document, all of the documents with respect to CLBC. This isn't something that previous governments have done, but I'm really committed to transparency in government and making sure the public has the information they need. So first of all, that. But second, the waiting list. This what was characterized as a waiting list, which was really a request for service. So people were putting their names on the list, sometimes in anticipation that they would have a need, sometimes putting their name on the list for similar services, not sure which one they would get. And so it wasn't an accurate representation of what was going on. That was one of the things we discovered when we went into CLBC, is that we had to fix the list. CLBC had to come up with a real way to track needs and assess them on an ongoing basis, because that's part of the reason that they weren't serving clients well. We are going to get there on that very soon.
Quick follow-up. You went to see Ridge Meadows Recycling for yourself recently, and I'm told that program, which was on the chopping block, is being saved.
It is being saved, absolutely. You know, that was another example. CLBC had lost its focus on its clients. That was why we went in and fixed it. And we did not take the easy way, Bill, as I said, which is just throw money at the problem. We went in and we did it the harder way, because it takes time. It takes time to make sure that you're fixing the problems at a fundamental level.
The Premier has promised to take your calls. We are going to include as many as we can. We would ask you to line up right now at 604-280-9898. Toll-free 1-877-399-9898. In order to prevent stacking of calls, we are going to be refreshing the phone board on a regular basis, so you may have to call more than once in order to get through. 604-280-9898. I am going to ask one more question about the HST before we open the phones and take your calls, but line up starting now. Marcella Bernardo has the news headlines.
Premier Christy Clark's taking calls from CKNW listeners this hour during a unique visit to the Bill Good Show. She's already said she's not going to give teachers a pay raise and promised changes aimed at streamlining court services. A fire following an explosion killed 2 men and a dog in the interior town of Clinton over the weekend. Investigators are now trying to figure out what sparked the fatal blast. And it could be weeks before we know if drugs were the downfall of one of the world's most successful singers, Whitney Houston. She was found dead in her Los Angeles hotel room a day before she was supposed to sing at last night's Grammys. Next news when it happens. I'm Marcella Bernardo.
We really can't properly assess patients in these areas.
Doctors at Royal Columbian Hospital say they are refusing to treat or assess patients who are in the hallways. Is it not enough space? Is it not enough staff? Or is it just too many patients?
Almost 70% of the work done at Royal Columbian is not local work. It's work that comes from the rest of the health authority.
The Simi Sarah Show, weekdays at 12:30 on CKNW News Talk 980.
What good's a new premier if it turns out to be politics as usual again? It will be if special interest money continues to have its unrelenting and distorting influence on our politics and politicians. Integrity BC is a nonpartisan, nonprofit group fighting for accountability in BC politics. They're advocating for legislative reform, tougher electoral finance laws, an independent BC ethics commissioner, and more. Visit integritybc.ca and show your support. Together, we can clean up BC politics for good.
Oh, great. There goes $200 for my windshield deductible.
Don't you have your vehicle replacement coverage with Ultima Risk Solutions?
Should I?
Absolutely. Ultima not only replaces your vehicle if you have a total loss, they reimburse your deductibles up to $500 for total losses and $250 for partial losses up to 5 years.
Really?
And there's no limit on the amount of claims. They even cover windshield deductibles.
To find out more, visit getyourdeductibleback.com. Certain restrictions apply.
Isn't it time to take some time, kick off your heels, and kick back for a little while? Introducing McCafe from McDonald's, proudly serving authentic specialty coffees. Enjoy our freshly ground espresso with fresh steamed 2% or skim milk for the smooth comfort of a classic latte. They're going to make breaks very popular again. McCafe. Bring back the break. At participating McDonald's.
Your life and her life have become intertwined.
Like two ropes looped into a knot.
And that's a good thing.
It gives you both something to hang on to.
The Love Loop Diamond Pendant whispers,
"You can count on me. I won't let you down."
epic.
$199.
You can swing that hammer. Of course you can. She knows exactly what a Love Loop means.
And on Valentine's Day,
so will you. Spence.
Wow! On Burrard.
Off Robson.
Or at 200th Street in the Langley Bypass.
Bramwell Tovey and the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra present one of the world's leading interpreters of Beethoven's music, pianist John Lill. Lill's extraordinary talent will make Beethoven's stormy, romantic Piano Concerto No. 4 sing. You'll also hear Elgar's passionate, adventurous Symphony No. 2. John Lill plays Beethoven with the VSO. 8 o'clock Saturday and Monday, Orpheum Theatre. Tickets online at vancouversymphony.ca or call 876-3434.
Kathy, come in here for a sec.
Yes, Mr. Branson?
We need to talk about your voice.
I know, I can't help it. Since getting Shaw XO TV and internet, I've been experiencing this intensity.
Well, just try to talk less.
But I answer the phones.
Highest HD picture quality, Canada's fastest internet. Experience TV and internet on the Shaw XO network for only $39.90 per month for the first 6 months. To order, call 310-SHAW today.
Andy is 12 years old and suffers with cerebral palsy. He enjoys the use of a special adapted tricycle, but if there's an obstacle, Andy needs help to move his trike. So the CKNW Orphans Fund purchased an electric assist kit for Andy, which is built right onto his tricycle that helps him become more independent and enjoy time with his friends.
The CKNW Orphans Fund, giving us kids a chance every day of the year.
CKNW News Talk 980, BC's news leader.
Bill Good with Christy Clark, Premier of British Columbia, in studio. Just before I open the phones, the phones are open and people are lined up, but HST, biggest blunder in Mr. Campbell's time in office, cost him his job. Why is it taking so long to get rid of it?
Two reasons. One, we're not at this dance alone. So we have to negotiate this with the federal government. That's part of it. If I could, I tell you, Bill, if I could snap my fingers and get rid of the HST tomorrow, I would do it. Because we want to make this transition happen as fast as I possibly can. And I know Kevin Falcon does too. We have to negotiate with our partners in the federal government. The second thing is, though, going down to the HST, I'm told, was a lot easier because essentially what you were doing is you were just raising the existing, they were just sort of putting it on the footprint of the GST and raising it by a couple points. Well, that's different going backward to the PST. You have to recreate an entirely new tax system again. So, you know, we're trying to get it done as quickly as we can. The commitment is to get it done by March 2013, have it done and out of the way. But if we could possibly get it done sooner, yeah. Well, I know. Well,
you collect a lot of money.
This wasn't a secret, Bill. I mean, the independent panel was pretty clear. British Columbians knew. We all knew when we went to the polls that they said it would take 2 years to get past the HST. So, you know, we're doing it much faster than was anticipated. You know, if we could get it done in a week, I'd be there for it.
Can't you find some interim relief from it for people like home builders who are being seriously hurt by a tax that we all know is eventually going to be gone? Well,
you know, I mean, I think as we work through the process, you'll start to see, people will start to get a sense of where we're going. We're getting closer to some of those things. People will, you know, I mean, we're going to have a budget pretty soon, and there'll be more details, I think, about some of those issues in that.
You say you want open government, yet it took Jonathan Fowling 19 months to get his Freedom of Information on the HST brochure. How is that open?
It's not. As Kevin Falcon said, and I love this quote, he said, just get the darn thing out. Or stupid thing out, I think he said. I agree. I mean, I just think
you're the premier.
Yeah, but you know what, Bill? We have 30,000 employees in government, and it's a big culture we're trying to change. So I'm doing everything in my office that I can, and we are pushing that down through the bureaucracy and through government over time. But I mean, it's not something that happens overnight when you've got a 30,000 strong organization. We are going to get there with open government. And one of the things we need to do is tighten up what we're doing on freedom of information, absolutely. But, you know, it's been 11 months. We've made big progress. We're going to keep going.
To calls, Lorraine.
Good morning. I had a question around the whole child care subsidy issue and the all-day kindergarten. The all-day kindergarten has really damaged the child care centers, especially the ages 3 to 5, because the all-day kindergarten is basically the same program as what we do. So we've really suffered as a nonprofit, and the subsidies have not been revisited in years. So I have families that come to get child care, but then they're maybe just over the cusp to get the amount of money that they need, and then they can't keep their job because they can't qualify for subsidy. So is subsidy going to be revisited, and is the child care grants maybe going to become a little bit more stable as opposed to being based on enrollment and how many children you have on any given month?
I hope we can revisit it at some point, Bill. We will not be able to do it this year, though, because we are just too tight for money. And so we're working really hard to try and balance this budget. And it's been very, very difficult. Although, so we've got to look after we've got to be fiscally prudent on one side in terms of spending. But I hear what she's saying. I mean, I sent my son to childcare too. I understand the impact that all-day K has had on childcare centers, and the impact of always trying to be adjusting your numbers and never knowing, in some cases, when you're going to have, how much money you're going to be getting. So on the second thing, stability and making sure that we find a better way to help childcare centers plan. Yes, we can work on that now. In terms of increasing the childcare subsidy, this is one of those very, very tough decisions one of the 1,000 tough decisions I'm going to have to make, where I have to say no because we just don't have the money right now.
DJ.
Good morning, Christy. Good morning, Bill.
Morning, DJ.
Good morning. I am scared to death of this next election. Every government in history has made a mistake here and a mistake there, but the difference to me is how do they govern in general. And I look back to the 90s, the NDP took over, and within 2 years we, in boom times, had the worst economy in the country. You guys took over, and it was immediately hit by avian flu, SARS, bovine crisis, the swine beetle epidemic on September 11th. Yet you still, in a worldwide economic drought, took us to the best economy in the country, which meant that people are working and they can pay tax.
Okay, DJ.
And these guys, they're going to run us into no economy and no jobs for anybody. And
I said we were going to try to not stack calls or take stacked calls. That was an overtly friendly call.
Well, I hope amongst your listeners, Bill, there are some people who care about our economy enough that they're concerned about the threat, the very real risky threat that Adrian Dix poses to our economy.
But I want questions, not speeches.
Okay.
Paul.
Fair enough.
Paul.
Hi, good morning. Got a quick question. The Highway 1 Port Mann upgrade improvements, the actual toll is to pay for the complete infrastructure. Now, when I work with a coworker, we both get on at First Avenue. He gets off at Cape Horn. I get off at 160th. The difference between us is $1,500 per year taken out of my disposable income. He gets the full benefit of the upgrade of the highway, but I have to bear not only the cost of the bridge, but of the highway itself.
That's a really good point. You have to find a fairer way to pay for infrastructure. It's not fair for somebody south of the Fraser to be paying a toll when people are driving the Sea to Sky Highway, they're driving the Ironworkers Bridge, the First Narrows Bridge, all the other bridges, and not paying tolls.
Well, the previous government's policy was to only have tolls on new highway infrastructure.
That was your government.
That was provincial. Well, I wasn't part of it for the last 5 years, Bill. I was here, filling in for you lots of times.
Beating up on that government at times.
Well, on things that I disagreed with, absolutely. So I think, and that was the policy, and there's some logic to that, which is previous generations, for example, the Ironworkers Bridge, have been paying for that for years through their taxes, and there's adding a toll to it doesn't add any new service. The Port Mann Bridge and the Gateway project is going to mean huge advantages for people. It's going to mean way better service. People are going to save over an hour a day.
Are you going to change the policy?
No, we're not going to change the policy.
You're not. So people south of the Fraser are going to continue to pay what I think is an unfair price.
Well, the thing is, Bill, is fiddling with it at this stage is it would be very, very difficult. And I think, the government of the day came up with the fairest policy they possibly could, remembering that the average commuter is going to save over an hour a day, more to spend with your kids or going to work. And I think a lot of people on both sides of the Fraser River, whichever direction they're traveling in, will say that that's worth it.
But people make the same argument. It's much quicker to drive to Whistler now, or to Pemberton, than it was. Hundreds of millions of dollars spent on that, no toll.
Do you think we should toll the Sea to Sky Highway?
Yes.
At what rate?
I don't know. I think you have to determine the rate based on some sort of fairness. You don't just toll the Sea to Sky. I think you have to toll the other bridges. You have to put road usage tolls on, or a carbon tax, something other than just tolling the Port Mann.
Well, you know what? I think that that's a debate that is beginning to unfold, particularly at the TransLink table, because they have the ability to place tolls on most of the roads in the province that are the existing ones, and on many of those main arteries. So and I know that that's a debate that Peter Ladner pushed when he was there, and it's a debate that many other local politicians are talking about. So I'm sure that debate is going to unfold.
Much more with the Premier and your calls right after the news headlines next.
Honey, turn off that computer and come to bed.
But I'm getting expert investment advice from the Globe and Mail. 29 ways in 29 days to be a better investor. I'm on day 7. Strategically diversify your
investment portfolio. I've read it. Why don't you diversify your evening activities?
So you've been following the series?
Every day this month. And tonight, I'm looking to gain some interest.
Interest? What day was that?
I'm going to bed.
Visit globeinvestor.com every day this month for 29 ways in 29 days to be a better investor.
When it's time to let go, call Kidney Car.
There'll be others.
But Nancy was always there for me.
Pry his fingers off the bumper. Okay, boys, take it away.
When it's time to let go of your old vehicle, call Kidney Car. Get a free tow and tax receipt. The money raised goes to the Kidney Foundation to help save lives and promote organ donation.
Okay, I'm over it.
Attaboy.
Be a kidney hero. Call 604-408-CARS to donate a car today, or go to kidney.bc.ca.
Everyone likes to get away. I like to make your getaways great. Hi, this is Cheryl McKinnon, host of Great Getaways, on air Saturday nights at 6 on CKNW. From quick escapes to the sun to extravagant cultural adventures, you're invited to come along for the ride when we explore the wonderful world of travel. Before you pack your bags and check in, be sure to check out Great Getaways.
Great Getaways with Cheryl, Saturday nights at 6 on CKNW. Brought to you by Sears Travel.
Well, we could go skiing.
No, too icy.
How about snowshoeing?
Too windy.
Who are you calling?
The Volkswagen dealer.
Winter, the perfect time to test drive a Volkswagen. Like the all-new 2012 Passat, with a dual-zone climate control system, anti-slip regulation, and a lease starting from an affordable $299 a month. 2.9% APR for 48-month lease. Dealer may lease for less. Visit VW.ca or your Volkswagen dealer for a test drive.
Buy early, win sooner, because you could win great early rewards in BC Children's Hospital Choices Lottery. A Hyundai Veloster Plus Canucks tickets or take $21,000 cash. Hurry, beat the deadline for early rewards and 5 grand prize choices. Early rewards deadline in 4 days. Call 604-692-2333. 692-2333.
Ticket buyers must be 19 or older. Know your limit, play within.
It's 9:30. This is CKNW News Talk 980, BC's most listened to radio station.
Good morning, I'm Marcella Bernardo. Our top stories. BC's Premier has unveiled her plans for the spring session of the legislature. Christy Clark insists a thriving economy is the best cure for funding shortfalls facing education and health care. She says the economy is too fragile to give teachers or any other public sector workers pay increases. Speaking with CKNW's Bill Good, she insists the only way to give them more money is to find savings elsewhere because she's just not interested in raising taxes. A weekend fire near Clinton killed 2 men. When Mounties responded to calls about an explosion in a rural area near the small town, they found the bodies. A dog was also killed. Investigators are now trying to identify the cause of the explosion that sparked the fire. Los Angeles police have put a security hold on Whitney Houston's autopsy results. There were no signs of foul play or trauma when a member of the 48-year-old's entourage found her dead in a bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel Saturday. Security holds have been used in other high-profile cases in the past, including Michael Jackson's death in June of 2009. Now, with all-day traffic, here's Jen Coles.
In Vancouver, we've got crews working on the traffic lights on Granville at 33rd. You're single lane both north and southbound. And in Surrey, an accident involving a school bus southbound on 152nd and 91st, and it looks like the right lane is blocked. Chevrolet Equinox has class-leading fuel efficiency and is a top safety pick. Available with 0% financing for 60 months. Visit your Lower Mainland dealer or Chevrolet.ca. I'm Jen Coles with your all-day traffic on CKNW News Talk 980. For instant traffic updates, go to AM 730 All Traffic All the Time.
Mark Madriga's weather today, cloudy with a chance of showers, then clearing this morning with a high of 8. Tonight, a few clouds, increasing clouds before morning, and a low of +2. Tomorrow, mainly cloudy with a chance of showers, clearing in the evening, and a high to 7. Right now, it is 5 in the valley, -1 in Whistler, and outside Pacific Center, it is 6 degrees. CKNW News Time is 9:32. I'm Marcella Bernardo.
Where you can trust the information and depend on the facts. The place you turn to in an emergency. CKNW News Talk 980, BC's news leader.
CKNW News Talk 980, Vancouver.
A special network edition of the program this morning with BC Premier Christy Clark, and we'll get right back to your calls in a moment. Teachers, they're spending a lot of money telling us they should get more money. They claim to be 9th in pay in the country. Where do you stand on teachers?
Well, they're 4th in pay. And
they say 9th.
Well, yeah, because they started adding in the Northwest Territories, Yukon, and Nunavut. And the reason teachers there are paid so much is because it's such a far-flung place, and it's really, really hard to attract people. So, I mean, their place, the teachers, BC Teachers' Place hasn't changed, except that their accounting for it has changed because they've added in 2 provinces and 1 territory that weren't there before. So they are 4th. And where I stand on that is pretty clear. We're putting $165 million into classrooms to deal with class composition, to support teaching assistants, to make sure that it's easier for teachers to be able to do their jobs. But we are not able to give teachers the raise that they want. $2 billion is what teachers are asking for at the table, and we just don't have the money for that.
So no raise for teachers.
Well, Bill, in order to give a $2 billion raise to teachers, I would have to go back to British Columbians and ask them for more tax money. Ask them to pay more, to take more money off their paycheck. That is what Susan Lambert says she thinks I should do. I disagree with that. And so we're not able to give teachers a raise. We can, though, find ways to try and make classrooms better and make it, make schools a place where teachers are more thoroughly enjoying their work every single day, and that's what the $165 million is all about.
Someone emailed me this morning to ask if you had so little faith in the public school system that you put your own son in private school.
I put my son in a Catholic school because I want him to have a faith-based education. And so he goes to a little Catholic school, 200 kids, and it's, for me, it was a choice that I made, because I want him to be able to have a faith-based education. That's my personal choice. It's my personal view. And that's one of the things that we allow in British Columbia is we allow people to have more choices. And you can't get a faith-based education in the public school system here.
How long are you going to wait before you legislate teachers back to, well, they're still at work, but to end the strike?
Well, we'll have to, we've sent out a fact finder, and that fact finder is going to come back with a report for us, and that will, after we receive that report, we'll have to make a decision about what to do next. And as I said in my opening comments, Bill, I am not that hopeful, because 73 sessions of negotiating and absolutely, almost no movement at the table, that's not cause for optimism.
Riley, good morning.
Oh, hello there.
Yes, go ahead.
So anyways, I was just wanting to say that Christy, you're in a unique position to be able to tell the world that we will not spend any more money developing fossil fuel infrastructure. And instead we can start seriously investing in renewable energy, creating possibly many jobs. We know Harper's stance on the Enbridge pipeline. Can you tell us right now that you do not support the Enbridge pipeline? And this is not about waiting for environmental assessment That's it. We know that fossil fuels, we can't keep using them, and we can create jobs using renewable energy.
Well, I've been really clear about my position on the Enbridge pipeline, which is we are not going to prejudge the process. The environmental review process exists for a reason. It's so that we can understand the costs and benefits to British Columbia potentially. And so I know Adrian Dix is happy to prejudge the process. He knows that how it's all going to turn out. Well, you know what? We have a process so that we can actually understand what the impacts of the pipeline will be. And I'm in a unique position as Premier because it's my job to make sure that we are making the best decisions for British Columbians. We need to do that when we have all the information. And that so we're going to wait to see what the NEB discovers and what we hear in the hearings. I think that'll give us a much better sense of the potential risks and perhaps the potential benefits for British Columbia.
Tom.
Yeah, good morning, Bill and Premier. I've had just a straightforward question. 5 months ago, you had one of your MLAs quit, and then in the 1st of January, another one. You have to call a by-election. You're on Bill's show now. Why not do it? I know it's coming soon because I think the timeline on the 6 months runs out on the 7th of March. But this is ridiculous that everybody's raring to go, and I know you may not want the results, but the fact is for 5 months there's been people in a Vancouver riding that have had no representation. If we'd have had it called in the first week of this year, in January, it would have been done by now. They could be waiting for the legal paperwork, and when the House sits tomorrow, they could be representing people of their riding in the House. And could you please just, why not today? You're on everyone's listening. Why not just make the announcement?
Well, I will call a by-election in the riding and in both ridings very soon. So hold your breath. I'm not going to announce it here today.
Not today. Vaughn pointed out, excuse me, last week that you have a number of former cabinet ministers sitting in caucus, probably second-guessing current cabinet ministers. Are you expecting several to step down and give you some new blood?
I think that there probably will be MLAs who choose not to run again. Some MLAs have served with distinction for 15 years, and some of them more than that. So I think it's possible that some will choose not to run again. And we'll be sorry to lose them because they have a great experience and breadth of wisdom that they bring to it. But at the same time, as you say, it's great to have new blood. It's great to have people bringing in new ideas, a new fresh eye. I feel like I was able to do that. I came in after 5 years of being out listening to people for a living every single day, just like you do. And I came away far richer from the experience of having listened to people, hearing different perspectives every single day. And I think that's one of the things that happens when you bring new people into politics.
Do you worry any may jump to the Conservatives if they think that may help them get reelected?
I don't think there's anyone in our caucus who is interested in trying to elect the New Democrats. And we have to be, as a party, and as people who care about the economy and jobs, sticking together. And we have to make sure that we do everything that we can to make sure we re-elect a majority government that cares about jobs and that's going to keep taxes low. That's my government.
You talked about a seniors agenda off the top in your opening statement, but you didn't go into any detail. Can you tell us what you have planned?
Well, I can't yet because we're going to be announcing it in the next couple of days. But
well, you can do it now.
It's going to be, I think, a pretty rich agenda for seniors because it's the fastest growing part of our population by far. Seniors are living much longer, which is great, and but need support, need different kinds of support in the system. So we have to rethink the way we support seniors, and we're going to be doing that with our seniors agenda. So you'll see that in the next couple of days. I don't want to let too much of the cat out of the bag and announce everything here today, Bill.
Back with more of your calls.
At home or at work, listen online at cknw.com.
Mike Smith has opened the floodgates. His province column about bullying in the workplace among provincial government employees has filled up his inbox.
This is costing you money. Absenteeism, stress leave, long-term disability, human rights complaints and lawsuits, poor productivity, employee turnover. This is all costing taxpayers a lot of money.
The Simi Sarah Show, weekdays at 12:30 on CKNW News Talk 980.
The dreaded C word, change. Some business owners fear it, which could be their demise. Why? Change is essential. This is where Microcom comes in. They make change easy. They take your paper files, your charts, your plans, your patient records, and make them digital. Microcom brings your business up to speed so you don't get left behind. Take the taboo out of the C word. Embrace change with a digital file solution for your business. Visit microcomsys.com.
Making sure your roof is done right the first time. This roofing awareness tip is brought to you by Interprovincial Roof Consultants.
Insist on hiring RCABC member contractors. The RCABC scrutinizes their members regularly and provides training towards journeyman certification. Qualified tradesmen install quality roofs the first time.
For professional advice with your roofing project, contact the professionals. Contact Interprovincial Roof Consultants. For more information, tips, and a no-charge quote, visit iprc.ca.
Select airlines can charge up to $50 round trip to check one bag to the U.S. On WestJet-operated flights, your first check bag is free to any of WestJet's destinations. Overweight and oversized baggage subject to additional charge. See WestJet.com for full details.
I'm Joel Matlin, president of Alarm Force. Wouldn't it be nice to see and speak with whoever's at your front door when you're not home? Well, now you can with the Alarm Force Video Relay. The Alarm Force Video Relay lets you see and speak with whoever's at your front door from anywhere in the world through your cell phone. Full video and live two-way voice together. The most advanced form of home security. Easy to install, the system goes directly on your front door and comes in virtually any color. Plus, you can access a history of events through your smartphone or computer. Perfect for your home, vacation home, condo, or small business. Or place the system inside your house and use it as a nanny cam. Get an Alarm Force Video Relay and an Alarm Force Home Alarm together for only $199 and just $35 per month. And you can get a video relay even if you have another company's home alarm. So call today and be there from anywhere with the Alarm Force Video Relay.
Call 1-800-267-2001. Alarm Force.
Alarm Force is listed on the TSX.
Paul, long time no see. How's retired life? You and Martha got any big plans?
Yeah, actually. We're going to buy this boat we've been eyeing and sail around the world.
Oh.
Unless I slip on the dock and break a hip.
Oh.
In which case, I'll blow all our savings on medical expenses and just putter around home. Playing solitaire.
Don't let your lack of health care get between you and your retirement plans. Sign up for Pacific Blue Cross Primary Blue Health Coverage. Acceptance guaranteed.
A family restaurant, a pizza joint, a bakery, and bar will all be auctioned off this Saturday at Able Auctions Langley. A huge amount of restaurant kitchen equipment, bakery equipment, tables, chairs, and more, all sold with no minimum price. Also home improvement items like flooring, kitchen cabinets, fireplace surrounds and boxes, even brand new sinks and toilets. Even hundreds of police recovered tools and bikes. This massive auction will take place this Saturday at Able Auctions Langley. AbleAuctions.ca or 881-ABLE for details.
If it happens in Vancouver, you'll hear it on CKNW. News, weather, traffic, sports, and everything else. This is CKNW News Talk 980, BC's news leader.
CKNW News Talk 980, Vancouver.
Live with BC Premier Christy Clark, you're counting on your jobs plan, but shipbuilding and the bulk of the liquid natural gas jobs won't happen until after the next election. How do you get credit for future jobs?
Well, I don't know. You've just got to do the right thing. And so, the shipbuilding contract, for example, we worked hard as a government to try and make sure we brought that home for British Columbia. We worked hand in hand with C-SPAN to make it happen. And so, what was the alternative?
Wait a minute.
What was the alternative?
That went to fair and proper tender. The federal government got all kinds of credit for finally doing something right and not playing political favorites. They went and BC won the bid.
Yeah, BC won the bid because there was, it requires that there was government participation in all these bids. That's one of the boxes they need to tick. So we went through a really difficult process of trying to figure out what our participation was going to be on this. And what we did is we came up with apprenticeship training credits in the tens of millions of dollars to support this. Now, this is not taxpayers' money we're giving away. It is not a subsidy. And because we don't believe in subsidies for business, it was a difficult process for us to go through. If we hadn't been there to support this bid through apprenticeship tax training and tax credits, British Columbia might not have gotten it. And so it was essential that we were there. We worked really hard with C-SPAN to make sure it happened. And so we helped make it a great bid. And yes, the federal government did the right thing.
But those are jobs down the road. They're coming after the next election.
Well, yeah, but I mean...
You need something before the next election.
Just because it's not coming before the election doesn't mean I'm not going to try and do it. I mean, I want to make sure that British Columbians have those jobs. But I also, but in terms of liquefied natural gas, we're enabling an entirely new industry in British Columbia. Almost, I don't know how often any premier in the country gets to say, I'm enabling a new industry here. So in helping this industry establish, I think we're going to make a long-term generational difference. But in addition to that, I do think you'll start seeing dirt turned on it in 2012 because they're going to have to start building the pipeline. It's been through 21 months of process. And here's the thing, Bill. It is really important that in British Columbia we start seeing progress, measurable progress on the jobs that we've been talking about. Because a project as big as this liquefied natural gas project is something that the world is watching. If we can get that underway quickly, the world's response, investors' response is going to be, holy cow, you can do business in British Columbia. And that's going to mean more investment and more jobs.
Where's the power going to come from for 3 liquid natural gas plants? That's a huge energy demand.
That's right, and it might be up to 5. But we'll certainly have one up by 2015, and then the next one. So we know that we can power the first 2. We've figured out how to do that with existing power sources. On future ones, though, we are going to have more power in British Columbia. Site C is coming online, and so are a whole host of renewables. We have to make sure we are building up the renewables business, the clean energy business in British Columbia. And one of your callers talked about that a little bit earlier. He said, we need to be advocates for renewables. I totally agree with that. What we're doing is we are creating a huge new demand for power, and that's going to mean we need to bring more power online.
Back to calls. Jane.
Hi, Bill. Morning, Premier Clark. My question is simple. It's about workplace bullying. While you were a talk show host on NW, you championed Pink Shirt Day and bullying causes. As a survivor of workplace bullying, my question is, when are you going to legislate workplace bullying, or anti-workplace bullying, and why has it taken so long? It's an epidemic. It's tragic. I have just now come out of what I went through, and I'm looking forward to getting back into the workplace. So what is your government going to do about that?
And how concerned are you about it being in the public workplace, in government, as Mike Smith has been writing so much about?
Yeah, well, I am deeply concerned about bullying. This is one of the causes about which I'm most passionate, Bill, and I learned that here. When I brought Pink Shirt Day to British Columbia from Nova Scotia, and I talked about it on the air with people, I was astonished. I was deeply moved by the stories that people tell about being bullied. It affects you for the rest of your life. It's one of those things that people find it incredibly difficult to get over. So
Can you legislate against it?
Well, there are lots of things that we can do to try and improve, to try and diminish rates of bullying. And, part of it is in the workplace. But really, you want to try and prevent it from happening. You want to prevent bullies from being created, which means you also need to really focus on the schools. So, that, as I said in my opening comments, an comprehensive anti-bullying strategy is going to be part of the spring agenda for my government. I am absolutely passionate about it. We're going to make it part of this spring agenda, and we're going to make it part of next spring's agenda and the spring's agenda after that, because it's something we have to really keep on top of, because it can affect people for the rest of their lives.
Final segment of calls right after this. Tom Mark has the news headlines.
Premier Christy Clark reaffirms her government's mandate there's no more money for a teacher's pay raise. She says to get that, she'd have to go to taxpayers. Vancouver police say they have a video showing an assault during the Stanley Cup riot. Later today, a judge is expected to reject televising the sentencing of one convicted rioter tomorrow. SPCA officers are heading out through the week to inspect properties that adopted former Stanley Park petting zoo animals. Next news, when it happens. I'm Tom Mark.
John McComb here, and I want you to join me on an amazing 17-day journey featuring Machu Picchu and the Galapagos Islands with Colette Vacations and Marlin Travel. Departing this November, we'll visit these 2 great bucket list destinations, plus many other tucked-away gems. Join me February 29th at the Park Inn Suites at 898 West Broadway for a free slideshow presentation. RSVP now. Call Marlin Travel in Oak Ridge Mall at 604-266-1712. 266-1712.
Oh, great. There goes $200 for my windshield deductible.
Don't you have your vehicle replacement coverage with Ultima Risk Solutions?
Should I?
Absolutely. Ultima not only replaces your vehicle if you have a total loss, they reimburse your deductibles up to $500 for total losses and $250 for partial losses up to 5 years.
Really?
And there's no limit on the amount of claims. They even cover windshield deductibles.
To find out more, visit getyourdeductibleback.com. Certain restrictions apply.
Howdy. We missed you while you've been off having such adventures. We heard about the salt stains and the double coffee you spilled all over you.
Until March 31st, bring your out-of-warranty Audi home for a free 30-point inspection.
We check you out good, yeah?
We'll also give you 6 months of free Audi roadside assistance.
We keep you safe over there.
Visit your Audi dealer or Audi.ca, because nobody knows the German engineering inside your Audi like Audi.
The National Ballet of Cuba presents a Canadian premiere, Don Quixote at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre. Choreographed by the legendary Alicia Alonso and accompanied live by the Vancouver Opera Orchestra. This is a unique opportunity to experience classical ballet at its absolute best. Fiery Latino passion mixes with spectacular Russian technique. The National Ballet of Cuba's Don Quixote, February 16th to 18th at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre in Vancouver. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.ca.
The way students learn is changing. How we teach needs to change too. BC has a plan for education that puts students first. We are establishing a $165 million Learning Improvement Fund to make sure students get the education they deserve. The plan also ensures that teachers can make the most of professional development days with training and resources. And it will give teachers the tools they need to prepare students for tomorrow. Learning is changing. Let's put students first. Join the conversation at bcedplan.ca. A message from the Government of British Columbia.
Sleep Country, Canada.
Christine, what surprises people when they come into Sleep Country?
I suppose it's how many pillows we have.
Why do you have so many?
Because not everyone sleeps the same. Some prefer to sleep on their back, others on their stomach or their side.
But how do I choose the right one?
Sleep Country has sleep experts that are trained to match you with the pillow that's right for you and your entire sleep system. No matter how you sleep, we've got your pillow.
Prospera Credit Union presents a golden opportunity to start saving for your nest egg.
A guaranteed rate of 2.25% on Prospera's 3-year non-redeemable term deposit. Now that's golden. But hurry in to see us and start saving today.
Start saving for your nest egg at Prospera Credit Union with a guaranteed rate of 2.25% for a limited time only. So visit Prospera today and take advantage of this special offer before it's gone. Full details at prospera.ca. Rate subject to change without notice.
Shop with confidence at Save-On Foods. We're priced right. Western Family Soft Drinks. Case of 12 355ml cans. Card price 2 for $5. Or Swanson Microwavable Meat Pies. Frozen 200 grams. Card price just 99 cents each. Plus, for exclusive offers on products you want, sign up at SaveOnFoods.com. Save-On Foods, BC's very own since 1915.
The World Today with John McComb. Weekday afternoons at 3 on CKNW News Talk 980.
BC Premier Christy Clark, and we'll get back to your calls in just a moment. We talked earlier about BC Hydro and what you and Rich Coleman had come to think was a bloated Crown corporation. I'm told ICBC now has more than 50 people making in excess of $200,000 a year. Does that surprise you? Does it trouble you?
Yes, it troubles me. ICBC getting audited. We're going to be looking at ICBC in the same depth as we did at BC Hydro. And I think, you know, Crown corporations have to live up to the same standard that the rest of government has been working hard to live up to. I mean, the rest of government isn't perfect, but the rest of government is doing, I think, a much better job than many of the Crown corporations are at trying to keep costs down. So, yeah, we're going to go in and look at them pretty closely.
604-280-9898. Will, good morning.
Good morning. Morning, Premier.
Morning.
One or a couple of quick questions. Did you hear the interview on CKNW recently with the TransLink bus driver who suggested there's as much as $20 million annually, or possibly as much as $40 million annually in fare evasion, and that's just was directed strictly at buses? And where can anyone send proposals that could possibly save millions of taxpayers' dollars based on employee observations from here and around the world? Because the worst thing in the world is seeing tax dollars wasted, and then politicians saying that there's no room for improvements or pay raises.
You know what? I'm so glad Will asked that, because in terms of TransLink, or in terms of fare evasion, that's a TransLink issue. It's not something that the provincial government can necessarily change one way or another. We'll let them make that decision. But there's a huge number of other areas where government can find big efficiencies, and we need to take the advice of people who are on the front line. So, Will, please go on to the BC government website and tell us what your ideas are. We want to engage with people in a different way than government has in the past. We want to be really listening and taking people's advice where we can about how we can improve. I am absolutely focused on making sure we are growing the private sector economy and making government as efficient as we can. Families can't get ahead unless we keep our focus on that.
Drivers want help. They want better security on the buses, and they want that security to deal with fare evasion. I heard from many drivers last week, one of whom I think said he'd counted 145 fare evaders. But many were talking about 20 and 30 a night who were just not paying. 604-280-9898. We've got time for one or two more calls. Brian, good morning.
I voted Liberal, and I hope to do so in the next election. But Christy, one question: there's been a lot of talk over the years about cabinet ministers in all parties being more transparent with respect to their personal expenses. We know that if you work for a corporation in any job when you travel, you have to put an expense account in, and the company who is ever in charge views that. But that doesn't happen here in any of the parties, federally or provincially. Is there anything that you can do to make it to have that the expenses more open to the public?
We've already made a big start on that, and that's I'm glad he asked that, because he's right. We need to make sure that that's part of the transparency, and so you can go online and find my travel expenses anytime you want, and you can do that with other cabinet ministers as well. That's all made public, and my goal is to make it public in real time, so that we are, on an ongoing basis. You can just go on every day, and you can go and see what the travel expenses were.
We've got a minute left. On the weekend, the phones were red hot over the revelation again that your government is paying about $1.5 million in perks for government employees, Starbucks gift cards or the like.
Well, we have about 30,000 employees in the province, and we spend about $750,000 overall on perks, on incentives to recognize great work. And that's a pretty widely recognized way to go about trying to incent employees.
So you defend it, you support it?
Well, I mean, the part of it that we're fixing is that there was no sign-off required. Now, this is a program that was set up in the 1990s under the NDP. There hasn't been in all those years any suggestion, I don't think, that it's been abused, but nonetheless, you need to have an additional sign-off. So we're fixing that part of the program. But boy, public servants, 30,000 public servants who dedicate their lives to supporting the needs of British Columbians, a little recognition sometimes is okay.
Thank you for doing this. I hope you'll do it again.
I will look forward to it, Bill. Thank you.
The news next.
It shouldn't surprise you that the smartest cars have the smartest offers. Take advantage of fantastic savings on all remaining 2011 Smart for 2 models. Up to $3,000 in rebates and lease from an astoundingly low $139 a month. It's a big idea for a big deal, but it's only around for a limited time. Open your mind to a smart way to drive. Set up a test drive today. For details, visit smartvancouver.ca or call 604-70-SMART.
If you're working around electricity, there's a key distance you should learn. 10 meters. It's the distance you should keep back from machinery operating around power lines. It's also the distance you should stay back from any down power line or exposed underground power line. 10 meters, about the length of a school bus. If you're